our family, it's been an amazing journey. It's definitely not one without tears.
We started off as foster parents probably about 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
I have been doing it for almost 25 years.
It's been a roller coaster of a journey. We cared for over 100 children.
Fostering has been a huge personal journey.
You know, any child that comes into our home becomes a part of our family.
So I was placed in foster care in a small town, saved my life, actually.
I'm a foster adoptive mom of a sibling group of 3.
I'm gonna make a difference in your life. That's what I kept telling in my head, not those little kids.
We've been involved and touched a lot of children's lives in the last 10 years.
Foster parents are my heroes. Batman's okay, Superman's all right, but foster parents are my heroes.
I got started fostering in probably a way that most people don't, and I was driving down the road and there was a banner over the road that said, "We need more foster parents," and I kind of thought to myself, well, I could do that. So I called up the number on the banner, and they said, "Oh, well, we're starting a foster class next week." So the class ended, and a week later, I became a foster parent. Being a foster parent is always expecting the unexpected. So I was expecting them to arrive with 2 children. They arrived with just 1 child. He was originally supposed to be a 2-week respite. We're now 3 years in. So they called one day and said, "We have a 2-day-old baby girl. Do you want to take her?" So I said, "Okay, sounds good." And they said, "Great, pick her up by 5. And she lived with us for 13 months and ended up being reunified with her mother. I think it was hard for my family to understand why I rooted for my foster daughter's mother as much as I did. And we would go to family functions and to weddings, and I would bring the baby, who was a Gerber baby and adorable, and everyone wanted to hold her. And they would say, "Are you going to keep her?" And I would say, "I don't know. Her mother's doing really well." And I just thought that there was nobody in this woman's life that thought she was going to be able to get this baby back. And I really tried to be that person.
We got certified and got a call. There's 2 little girls. And my heart was pounding. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I didn't ask all the questions you're supposed to ask. And we're like, yep, sure, we'll take them. And had no idea what we were in store for.
We got a call that there was a baby in the hospital. And that was our first child.
We've only ever taken teenagers. Has always been what we've done. And we have a 4 and a 9-year-old now who are actually the children of teenagers that were with us in foster care. So sort of our grandkids, but I'm not ready to say that. So
they were very clear in the classes that foster care is supposed to be a temporary solution to return a child to its parents, and that was always supposed to be the goal.
We picked him up from the hospital, and we were told that, you guys are going to wind up being able to keep him and adopt him because this is the second child that mom has had that's been taken away. So, are you guys open to foster adoption? And absolutely, no questions asked. And then probably 2 weeks later, we got a telephone call and they said, oops, change of plans. The half-sister, the biological dad had custody of his half-sister, and decided they wanted to have the baby come and keep the siblings together. It was devastating, but at the same time, it was also a good lesson and a good thing to happen.
It was our first children in foster care, and we had a really good relationship with the mom, and it was a really happy ending because they went back home with their mom. I wish that for every foster parent that begins. My second baby, I had him for 3 years, and he was 4 when I got him. And a little emotional because, I didn't even know that tapped into that like that. But I had him for 3 years. He was 4 when I got him, and therapeutic. And the trauma that he had been through was horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible.
The kids came to our home with trauma. So they had nightmares, they had tantrums. They had some behavioral issues. And what kept me going was thinking, well, you are like that right now. But with the right environment, you're going to blossom, you're going to grow, and you are just going to keep getting better and better.
Sometimes it's necessary when you're called, can you take this child or this sibling group, to say no. Either because of the ongoing situation in the home or because you had a difficult placement and you need a little bit of a breather, or because of the circumstances of the child that's being offered to you.
We also have friends who went through the classes and then
decided not to
continue because it was too emotionally invested that they were afraid.
You know, I had a kid that came to me, one of my kids now, he came to me in a police car, and he was high.
We went into foster care with a traditional belief that it would be our little family, and it expanded to us that it was more than just our little family and our little community, but also then included our children's first families in a really important kind of tango.
I often say there is no book written for how to co-parent with the parent of the child that you are not the parent of. Right? Like you go to Barnes & Noble and there are a million parenting books and not a single one talks about how to form a relationship with somebody who may not like you.
You know, I always think if someone took my biological children and I can only see them 1 hour once a week, I'd be pretty pissed off. Like, I'd be difficult to deal with.
We as foster parents need to keep in mind that as much as we don't understand the birth parents, they're human beings, and we're seeing them at their worst, unfortunately.
So if you can sort of take 2 seconds and put yourself in their shoes, someone took their kids, and it doesn't matter why they took them. Innately, they love them, and you have to accept that they love them with the skills that they have.
I like to talk a lot about partnership and how important it is to make that first phone call that night of placement to mom saying, hey mom, this is Melissa. I just wanted to give you a call, let you know that Susie's with me. I wanted to introduce myself. I wanted to find out what are Susie's bedtime routine. What are the things, some of the things she likes to have for a snack before she goes to bed. Just getting that phone call that first night, I think makes a lot of difference, and it sets the tone for your relationship.
It's emotional. It's emotional in the sense of you're trying to help bio parent, you know, to get their child back. At the same time, you are so in love with that child. And when bio mom messes up, it's heartbreaking.
Realizing that our job is not to take all of these children and make them our own. Our job is to give them a loving home and giving them a place where they can feel safe and showing them the other possibilities. And also trying to be a support for the birth parents. So I'm not trying to take anyone's children away from them, and trying to be supportive and see, okay, what can I do to facilitate a positive relationship?
And we've always been foster carers. We've never been adopters. So we have never felt conflicted in working to get children returned to their birth parents. And if that was impossible, then we've worked with prospective adoptive parents.
Because we were never seeking to adopt, that has actually helped us be able to make a relationship with the birth parents, because we're not a threat to them.
Well, my daughter's birth parents are not bad people. They never hurt her. There are just circumstances beyond their control and their mental ability that make them unable to actively parent her, but they truly love her. And in truly loving her, again, somebody who loves my kid is somebody that I have a lot of room for.
You know, I had one particularly really difficult placement, and and he went home, and I said the only reason I stuck it out with him was because of his mom. She was amazing. We had a great relationship, and not to say she wasn't difficult, but she was an adult and she was supportive and she wanted to go parent, and we had a lot of communication. And when he was giving me a hard time, he'd be like, I'm calling my mom. I said, I wish you would. And she'd get on the phone and she'd say, you better mind Miss Danielle because she's doing the right thing by you. And if you want to come home, you better mind her. Now he's a junior in high school and he's still making honor roll, and they send me pictures of his report cards, and We have a great relationship.
He said the dad was relieved, and he said to my husband, "Thank you so much. If I could pick a family for my children to go to, it would be you and your wife, and I thank you."
A lot of the parents, they don't have the knowledge or they understand, like when you get court papers or some of them, a lot of that language is like hard to understand and foreign. So if you can offer, hey, do you understand this, and sit down and go over a lot of that stuff for them to help them understand the situation and how the process is going to work, and that they're not the bad person in all of this.
And sometimes you need to be the voice for the parent, like the situation we had where this mom was told she was going to have visitation. And so sometimes they're not in a position of power and no one listens to them. So if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, if you can help to speak up to facilitate, again, that relationship between bio parents and children, then by all means do it.
These families are struggling for one reason or another. We don't know what they've been exposed to. We don't know what brought them to this point.
They give you these children for you to take care of. And then so now you're like handing them off, and the next couple hours they got to go see mom and dad.
For our situation, the parents were supposed to bring all the supplies that the children needed. So food and diaper changing and all that, they were supposed to bring that to their visit. Well, they were in a situation where they couldn't necessarily afford those things. And so, but yet they're being judged, and the expectations there that they have that. So after trying to find out what was going on, I'm like, okay, so how can we make this better? Because the only people suffering here are the kids.
Right.
And so we talked to the social worker to say, look, we know that this isn't what's supposed to happen, but can we have a bag for them in the car? If the parents don't bring what they have, at least we have backup. They can still have their visit. Everyone, everything can be fine and no one has to suffer.
But also feel quite a lot of empathy for the birth parents.
I'm glad I had some of my family that understood what I was doing, and some of them were like, "You're just a bad mom." And from this day, my sister still says I'm a bad mom, but I gave my son a good home. I was young and I couldn't provide for him. I didn't have income. I wasn't in work or anything, so I did what I had to do for my son. It was hard. Any birth parent that ever goes through with it. Oh my God.
It's okay. Sorry.
Sorry.
All right. She fought. She did everything she needed to do to keep our son. She did everything she needed to do. Went to all the appointments, every visit, everything.
It's hard to talk about.
Yeah, of course.
I was trying not to cry.
Okay. You got me crying too, sorry. Yeah.
Bruce and Faith, one thing that was really awesome is they allowed us to come home with the baby. They allowed us to ride home with the baby and stay there for the day when he first got out of the hospital so that we could bond.
Because like I stated, we're recovering addicts, and that's the reason why he wasn't able to come home with us, is because of our addiction and stuff. But it kind of pushed Amanda and I to continue to try seeking our sobriety.
It's just having the contentment inside of knowing that he's safe and loved and cared for, and I don't have to worry about anything with him being there.
Yeah.
If that had been happening, it might have been a little bit harder to stay clean.
I was adopted into a family where my mother was a foster mother. I was able to be on the other side of adoption, where I did become the birth mother. I had a great life. I can offer my child that also. So I surrendered my baby boy on December 24th.
My mother was addicted to drugs and alcohol, still is. My father addicted to drugs and alcohol, and he actually committed suicide when I was 18. When I was, I think, 12 years old, I was placed in the foster care system. I remember the night. So my brother and I were out for Halloween. My brother and I came home that night. My father had been drinking and we got in an altercation. Next thing we know, the cops are called, and they weren't gonna really do anything, but we knew my father had some drug stash, and we told him about that. Next thing we know, we're in foster care. Saved my life, actually.
No matter what has happened in that child's life, the connection they have to their birth parents is strong. Whether they have concrete memories of that birth parent or not, they still have a strong bond.
I'd always find that if I was with a foster family or my grandparents, I'd want to go back to my mom and dad. Then I'd get back to my mom and dad. They're divorced, so it'd be separate. I would always realize something's not right. I would always find my way back to Kensington to foster care or to my grandparents. So I knew internally that I loved them, but I could not be there. I always tried to make it work, and I actually tried to make them better, which was impossible.
I feel very corny, but I just think love. Like, here was this guy in our home, and he just did not want to be there. You know, he did not want to be in foster care. And so we went through our ups and downs, but it was all about, for me, it was about connection. And I think understanding a lot of the behaviors and a lot of, the attitudes of teenagers, but specifically in foster care. And here was this guy who just lived a rough life and had been institutionalized many times. And, we were told we were the last ditch family effort for him. And so luckily he aged out of the system. Mm-hmm. And I think through that, we were able to maintain a connection because I think he felt like he was finally getting some independence. Mm-hmm. And so we worked with that. We found what he wanted and how we could support that.
We just wanted to give them a good home and a good life. And I think that
you definitely succeeded. She cares so much, and I wouldn't be the person I am without her guidance and without her being there.
They're also not able to love when they came in. And for them to show empathy and sympathy is the biggest, most wonderful thing that a parent could ever have.
Hopefully being in my home, definitely had them, give them that push, that they would have that resilience going further in their lives.
Every day that I work with young people, I am encouraged and inspired by their level of resilience. So much of their life has been riddled with interrupted relationships and fractured relationships. So to give them the confidence that they can invest in somebody else because that person is going to invest in them is paramount to their ability and interest in thriving.
So my oldest was born. I was going through a little bit of a hard time, and I was on the way to prison for selling drugs and whatnot. And my mom and dad stepped in and helped. They took over and helped me out.
Making the challenge of working with our son and his child sometimes can be difficult. He has his own thought process of what he wants to do with his child. And of course, the court says, well, no, he cannot have the child on an unsupervised visit. And so we'll have to put our foot down and just say, no, it's not possible at this time.
And letting him know that we did not take his kids from him. The court did. It was not us. We had nothing to do with that. That was your own choices.
I know my son thought that, okay, if my parents are watching my children, then I can come and go, I can do as I please, and I can have my cake and eat it too, kind of thing. And not realizing that we had to stay by the law, we had to stay by the court order, and we were going to abide by that.
Michael is 18, Deborah is 16. Deborah belongs to my brother. My brother and his wife are both disabled. And so I got her when she was 2 weeks old. She's now 16 years old. So we've been doing this for a moment.
I have a unique perspective, I think, because we're sort of a kinship family, because we had two of our moms, our birth moms, were our kids for periods of time. And then when they because they lived with us through foster care, and then they moved on to their lives. And then when they were in a situation where their kids weren't going to stay with them, they thought of us to call as a resource. So we're a kinship family without biological, right? And it's an interesting sort of quandary because I love them. By design, I love their children, right? But I hate some of the things they do. And sometimes I'm put in a position where I need to protect my kids from their moms, who are also my kids.
We also have like our little guy right now who is not quite foreign. I can't get into all kinds of detail. He has 4 older siblings that are with his grandparents in a kinship situation. And they had to make a decision that they just couldn't do anymore. So when he was born, the caseworker contacted us, and we also have a phenomenal relationship with them. They come to our house, we text all the time, we do phone calls, because those are his birth grandparents.
My birth mother's second child was left for my birth aunt to babysit in the beginning, take care of in the middle, and raise in the end. So the dynamics of that, although I was not a part of those years, I know now in speaking with my birth aunt that there has been a little bit of a struggle.
There were some times when it was tough, and I would get frustrated in my spirit with Billy. And sometimes Billy will be a trigger for me because I'm like, why can't you get your stuff together and watch your kids? And that's something we have to work, we talk about and have to work through sometimes.
I think traditional foster parents make a conscious decision. They get up, they think about it, they talk about it, they do the research, they go for training. They have an opportunity to really prepare for the situation, to make a fiscal plan, to make a plan in their home, as opposed to a relative who gets a call sometimes at 11 o'clock at night. We have a loved one. What do you want us to do? And I think that's amazing when a family member can say at 11:01, yes, of course we're going to do this. But I think it's truly unfair to not then retroactively say to them, okay, and here's how we're going to fortify you. We're going to give you this training to deal with the trauma that they've experienced. And here's how we're going to help you fiscally, because a grandparent who's retired at 65 isn't necessarily ready to financially take on a child and may just need that extra help. And why shouldn't they get it? Because a traditional foster family would get that assistance. Unless you have a support network set in place to help those kinship families, you're setting them up for failure. And you're setting that child up for failure and potential bounce. And why would you want to do that? We want to fortify families.
Having a support system and being connected to other individuals who either have already gone through fostering or adoption or who are in the process now is so huge, because then you're around people who understand, people who can give you advice and suggestions.
The children who we take will always be traumatized, because taking a child from a parent is a traumatizing event. And that will make them quite hard work at times.
All 3 of our kids have multiple therapists: OT, PT, SEEIT, speech therapy, nutrition feed. I mean, we are just running the gamut of therapists, and that is exhausting. And it's also it's stressful. And so I actually started a local community group where we bring in experts that teach adults how to reduce stress.
It's always a danger, I think, for new foster parents to think at their failures if they have to look outside themselves for help. And that's absolutely not true.
And even within sitting down with those other parents in those support groups, you hear similar stories. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. You know, I'm not the only one, or we're not the only ones going through this. And that's just such a relief. And then you can say, well, what did you do? You know, and they can tell you, and you can use it or not use it. And so it's really helpful to have people to talk to on a regular basis in kind of a, facilitated setting, which is nice. But just to hear their stories and know we're not alone.
We have a support group where foster parents meet together, and because foster parents are going through the same things, they understand completely. that when you say it's been a really rough night with this kid, they know what you mean. They know that you're not saying you want to give the kid back or anything like that, but just that it's nice to have people who understand and are doing the same thing.
My husband and I took the MAPS course through our local Department of Social Services, foster care. Everything that they had taught us was very interesting to us because we felt we were in a preparation mode. Like, we need the tools. We need to be equipped because it's really easy to do it here in a classroom, to talk about it and envision and learn. But when you leave with a binder and you're in your own home and it's a 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday and you may be experiencing a mini crisis, you don't have time to really leaf through the book.
And so support groups for foster parents that, not only allow the opportunity to talk about your experience, but then to be able to gain tools and how to deal with that experience so that you're going to be more equipped the next time around.
The additional thing with foster parenting is that you have the confidentiality. So you can't go into work the next day and said, I had a really tough night the night before and give details, because you've got a confidentiality you want to keep.
Because I'm a single foster parent and because I have to travel sometimes for work, I had to rely on respite when my children were in care or when my child was in care. And so I was able to form relationships with other foster parents so that I could trust that when I had to leave the children, I was leaving them in the care of people that I trusted and that I knew had similar values to mine.
We're fortunate where I live in our county that we formed a foster parent support group. And we meet usually once a month, have a dish to pass dinner. The kids go off and play, and then so that all us older foster parents, and not in age-wise, but have done it for a while, are there to kind of support some of the new, younger people if they have questions.
Everything was wonderful and going fine, and I was trying to work with the mom there as well, and she could call, whatever, And so, of course, I let her, call, but, she didn't have boundaries. And, I had to set boundaries, and she just kept overstepping the boundaries. So I said to her, listen, I need you to go back to contacting us via email. Well, that was on a Tuesday. Wednesday, CPS and the police was at my house. And the allegation was that I beat this baby with a baseball bat. It was quickly closed and unfounded, but I was angry afterwards. That's why parent support groups are so phenomenal, and making connections with other parents that go through crazy things where there's no one else that understands, or, you know what I mean? And we kind of find resources and things ourselves. Okay, so you can't help me. Well, let's get some help around here,
We need folks to step up and make a difference in the life of children.
I think there's a balance between going into it totally blind and going into it knowing that it's going to be hard. And so I think, it's hard and it's challenging, but it's ultimately so rewarding. And I am thankful every day for my relationship with, not just with my adopted son and my former foster daughter, but with all of the children that I've had in and out of my home.
My advice is, if you can't love everything that's about these children that comes in, if you can't be able to love them, then this isn't the field for you to be in.
It has had its phenomenal highlights, and it has had its tremendous heartbreaks.
If I was to give a message to any foster parent, is work through those challenges, work through those struggles, and don't ever give up. They're children, and they need that family support.
Since we've raised so many kids and we've done teenagers for so long, people are like, oh, what do you do? And I don't know what we do, right? But so often kids say that we're very real. Like when they move in, they come that first day, I don't miss a beat with regard to you're part of our family. There are chores. These are the benefits. This is what happens. So there's no sort of airs, right? We're very real. We live just in a regular house. There's nothing special about it. All our kids share rooms. So I guess my advice would be like, keep it real. And that goes with the birth parents, with all the relationships. If you're genuine about what you're doing and your intentions are genuine, everybody notices that, and I think the relationships are better.
And I would just say, try it. Just try it. You can always stop. You can always say no. You can always decide this isn't for you, but just try it, because I think it really can, enrich your life and change it in ways that you wouldn't expect. And at the same time, you are helping and shaping the lives of these little people who really need that.
Just about the time that you're ready to give up, one of those little faces come through the door.
You learn the power of giving. And it is not about what you're receiving, but what you're giving.
The growth in our family and our family dynamics and our acceptance of all kinds of things, you can't teach that. You just have to live that.
The best I can say is love greatly. There is the opportunity that you are going to be absolutely clobbered, and every single second is still worth it.
Because every child deserves a good home.